Alright, hey guys, it's Mayor from Pilot Effect. I'm going to run through a quick and dirty flight in the Q400 simulator from Calgary to Edmonton. Nothing fancy. I'm not going to do any checklists or do any approach briefings or anything to that sort. Just trying to get into the simulator because I have a little bit of time to myself, so just trying to get used to it. So this is just a quick and dirty flight. So it looks like we are dark. So what we'll start with is turning on the batteries. And it looks like there is no external power connected from what I saw outside. So we'll just run the APU really quick for engine start. Do a quick fire test on the APU, looks good. Bit test on the APU is done. We'll just start it up. And just wait for it to boot. And once it's started, the gen warning light will come on. So it should just take a few seconds here.
Bank angle.
Come on, come on, come on, come on, come on. There we go. Okay, gen light on. So the closed door lights came on, so that's good. We know it's running. Alright, let's look here. The GPU is powered. Good. Alright, so like I said, I'm not going to run through any safety checks of the cockpit or originating flow checks or anything like that. I'm just going to get things started, program the FMS, start the engines, take off, and land into Edmonton. So let's start with turning on the FMSs. And these are not connected for some reason. In the airplane that I fly in real life, they are actually automatically cross-filling, but in the simulator they don't cross-fill, so I don't know what's up with that. Alright. So we'll just quickly program the FMS here. I'm just going to use the right one. I'm actually not sure. Yeah, that's good. Okay, so when they boot up, they went through this acceptance screen of checking the database, and that's good. I'm just going to make this a little bit bigger. Alright, so we'll go flight plan. Our origin is CYYC. Enter, enter. And then we are off to our only waypoint, Oilers. Enter, enter. And then into Edmonton, CYEG. Enter, enter. We're not going to worry about the fuel page at all. This is good enough. And like I mentioned, this doesn't cross-fill, so you'll see that it doesn't show up here, but we don't care. We're not going to worry about that. All right, what we're going to do now is quickly start the engines. We are on APU power. The bus tie is tied, so switches are on. We'll select the right one. Select the right toggle switch and start the starter for the right side. And then we'll bring up to start feather, add fuel, and we'll just watch this guy go up. Letting the engine start normally. And that clicking sound was the starter cutting out, so the toggle switch recentered itself. And then at 64, it's stable. So at 64 NH, we can turn on the number 2 bleed, and hopefully the select light will go off. So usually the select light will go off 15 seconds after the toggle switch has centered. We want to make sure that our battery loads are less than 0.4, so they are. We're good to start number 2. And we'll just go bus tie off because the gen is already operating on the right side, and we can turn this off. So select number 1, engage the starter, we'll introduce fuel, and we'll just watch the number 1 H1. Or NH, sorry. Alright, the starter cut out. So the toggle switch is centered, and we are stable on number 1 coming up to 64. That's good. So we can turn on the number 1 bleed and select light out. Great. So this is going to be super quick and dirty, obviously. We missed a bunch of stuff before engine start, which I don't really care about. We're just going to start up here, work our way all over the overhead panel, start from the left of the cockpit to the right, and then the center console. Make sure we're ready for takeoff. All right, so the batteries are on, DC gens are on, tie is off, external power is off. For takeoff on the anti-ice, we'll leave everything off except for the pedostatics, which is 3 of them. We'll turn those on. That looks good. This all looks good here. We'll turn on the approach light and the flare light. Coming up here, all this stuff is good. We're actually going to turn off the APU, so we'll deselect it here. Ignitions are normal. We'll set the pressurization landing altitude to Edmonton, which is right there. This is on auto. Forward alpha valve is closed. Anti-collision. The starter's flickering on the APU is just a glitch, I think, of the simulator. It doesn't actually do that in real life. Way inspection will leave off. Anti-collision will switch it to white. Position light on. AC gens are on. Bleeds are on and min. Packs are on auto. Seatbelt sign on. No smoking sign on. Test advisory dim. We don't need. Emergency lights, we'll make sure they're armed. So the overhead panel is ready for takeoff. Let me close this. Okay. And then what we'll do is we'll start from the left side of the cockpit here. So flight taxi, we'll put it on flight. We'll turn this to the right side, HSI to the right, because we didn't cross-fill the FMS, so these need to come on. We should put the flaps down before, but we'll just turn these on now, whatever. For landing, we'll do this, 15. Okay, so left side looks good. Also on that side here, we'll turn on the nose wheel steering is on. Good. All right, let's check this side here. So this all looks good. Anti-skid should have been on already, but whatever. Over here, let's set up some, whoops, can I make this bigger? There we go. We're gonna set up some V-speeds. So first I need to change my nav source actually before I forget. So nav source FMS2, and then the heading, we're gonna put it just straight ahead. And I'm gonna quickly configure the top here. So we'll just press the go around button on the throttles to make go around. Close that. Okay, great. So altitude, we're going to put it up to 7,000 for this one. We'll just say it's straight ahead up to 7,000 feet for the Calgary departure off runway, the runway we're on. Alt cell heading, so heading cell, alt cell, go around 7,000 feet. We're going to set our flap retraction. Right now we have a decision altitude of 200 feet. We're going to bring that all the way down to 0. And we'll toggle the switch to MDA, and the elevation in Calgary is 3,600, so we'll set 4,610 as our altitude, our MDA, and that's going to be our reference for flap retraction. We usually want to bring the flaps up at 1,000 feet AGL, so all the way to 4,610. Come on, come on, come on. All right, sweet, there we go. And then altimeter is 292, that's fine, heading about 345. We're going to set him some V speeds. So we'll say V1 is 120. I'm just sort of making these speeds up. VR we'll say 125. V2 is 130. And below here is V fry, which is our flap retraction speed, V fry. We'll put 135. And then our last one is V climb, which is, let's say, 150. Set. All right, so a quick review here. HSI is to the right. Good, altimeter is 292, indicating 3550. Go around heading alt cell 7,000 feet. Flap retraction is 4,610. Heading bug 345, NASORS FMS2, no messages, and our V speeds are all set up, so we're all set up there. That's good. Let's go to the center column here. So these pumps need to go on. Why aren't the pumps working? Oh, let's bring these up. So I just brought the condition levers up. Okay, so we'll turn on the pumps, good. We'll just go end top, auto feather is armed, control lock is off, parking brake we'll leave on for now. Just want to make sure the flaps are indicating 5 degrees, great. Yeah, the pumps didn't go on because the condition levers were still in star feather, but they're up now. So this is all good, auto feather is armed, control lock is off, trim is good. We'll switch this to the nav page. That all looks good. We're not going to worry about frequencies on the ArcDo's. Trim is good. I'm going to set this here to nav page. So we have nav good. The nav page is on. ArcDo's are good. What about the bottom? This side. And I just want to quickly check this side. All right, I think we are ready for takeoff. So we'll switch to virtual cockpit on the right side. And let me just do a quick scan here. Control locks are off, auto feathers on, pumps are on, high pumps are on, flaps are 5. All right, looks good. Sweet. So we'll release the brake. Let's say we're clear for takeoff, and we'll smoothly add power. I'm looking to add power to the indent rating, which is really hard to tell from here, but we'll just sort of judge it carefully somewhere there. All right, so a little bit more power. All right, power set. A little bit of right rudder as we're losing the center line. 80 knots. V1. Rotate. So we'll slowly pull back. Aiming for around 10 degrees nose up. All right, 10 degrees nose up somewhere there. Positive rate, gear up. Just going to actually make this a little bit bigger so I can see. There we go. All right, there's our flap retractions altitude, and our speed is good. Our flap retraction speed is 135, so we can just bring the flaps up in one shot. And we can see that they've come up. Great. With the flaps up, I'm good to set the autopilot on, so autopilot on. And I'm just going to scroll this down to there, 10 degrees nose up. And we can do a quick after takeoff checklist. So gears up, flaps up. We can set some climb power, so we'll bring these back. We can turn off the aux pumps, turn off the, oops, wrong button. Turn off the auto feather. 6,000 for 7,000. Let's say we're cleared up to 16,000. So we're up to 16,000. 16,000 all sell. Great. And we're just finishing up our checks here. So pumps are off, auto feather is off, flaps are up. And where are the... We have to turn off the hide pumps, but I don't remember which one I see them on. Oh, whatever. I think it's here. Oh, there we go. Hide pumps off. Sweet. And we can see that our inclinometer is really far off here, so we need a little bit of right trim, which is down here. So that's this one here, so we'll just add a little bit of right trim just to center the inclinometer. Okay, cool. So let's say they give us a call, and we're good to proceed on course. So you can see that this is our course here. So there's a few things that we could do. We could just hit LNAV, or we could turn the heading bug to intercept the course. It's probably just safest to hit LNAV. So we'll hit nav, and you see that it changes to LNAV. At 10,000 feet, there's a few things that we can do. We can turn off the landing lights. We want to make sure the pressurization is good, so differential is positive. The cabin altitude is just over 2,000 feet. Looks good. And we could turn off the fasten seatbelt sign at this point, but it's such a short flight that we'll just might as well leave it on. Another thing that I like to do through 10,000 feet is actually pitch the airplane down. There is no point in keeping the nose so high. Usually in flight operations, once we're airborne, we want to make it comfortable for the flight attendants in the back to be walking around, because usually they start service at this point. So we'll pitch the nose down so it's less of an incline for the flight attendants when they are pushing the cart in the aisle. Super. All right, so since we've got some time before cruise, I'm actually going to load the arrival on the FMS. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to our flight plan page, and we're going to be doing the Oilers 2 arrival onto the RNAV Zulu 30 using the SUVAT transition. So on the flight plan page, we'll go menu, arrival. So it's Edmonton, runway 30, which is number 4. So pick 4, enter. We're doing the Oilers 2 arrival, which is number 3, enter. The transition we'll be using is for runway 30, so we'll select number 4, enter. And then we're going into the RNAV Zulu, number 4, enter. And then we're using the SUVAT transition, which is number 2, enter. So Edmonton, runway 30, Oilers 2, using the runway 30 transition onto the RNAV Zulu SUVAT transition. And we'll go flight plan, and looks like everything loaded up okay. Now, normally at this point, we're going to verify waypoints and altitudes. I'm not going to do that because I don't want to put the plates on the video, because, for legal reasons. So we'll come back to this in a second. We're just coming up to our level off. So 15,000 for 16,000 alt cell. So we're going to be leveling off soon. So we'll just let the level off happen. All right, great. Now, normally what we would do for this altitude, I would probably speed up to like 265 knots. But since I'm sort of just getting comfortable with this sim, I'm probably just going to keep it around 230, which seems like a low speed, but we'll just do that anyway. So we'll set cruise power, so we'll bring the condition levers down to 800 or 850 RPM. And as the airspeed starts to build up, I'm going to start to bring the power back. Uh, 55% torque. Looks like that's sort of slowed it down from building. That's good. Another thing is the inclinometer is off to the left. So I'll quickly add some left rudder trim to fix that up. Maybe a little bit more. All right, so our speed is super low, and that's totally fine. So now what we're going to do is go back to our FMS. Looks like we have a duplicate masthead. I'm not sure why it did that in the actual airplane, and it wouldn't do that, so I'm just going to delete the first masthead. And let's say we're going to be cleared the approach and we know it. So I can just close up the approach from the arrival. So you can see that it goes Calgary Oilers, and the Oilers is the first point of the arrival, into masthead SUVAT, MESVA. Now SUVAT, if you look down to the arrival, is the first point. So after SUVAT on the star, we have MESVA, which is leading us up to a vector in case we don't get approach clearance. but we don't care about that for today. So we say that SUVET is number 8. So what I'm going to do is fold the approach. So just below SUVET, I'm going to select it and I'm going to put in 8. And what that does is it brings SUVET all the way up, so we have SUVET, SUVET. Looks good. So one last look. Oilers, Masset, SUVET, and we're on to the approach. Now I'm not going to verify waypoints and altitudes at this point. We're just going to go into setting up a VPath. So the first point that we have for an altitude is Masset. So normally in the airplane, when we hit VNAV, it would detect. It would automatically put present position to the first waypoint associated with an altitude. But Oilers doesn't have an altitude, so this would never happen in the airplane. But I'm just going to manually select here Masset, which is number 2. And we'll do enter. Let's go 1,500 feet per minute for the descent. And our top of descent, TOD, is 57 miles out and 11 minutes out. Good, so we have that all set up. The next thing we're gonna do is set up our speeds for the approach. So we'll click here. Let's say our VREF is 130 and our VGO is 125. Super. And in the event of a go around, we'll put our VFry into here, which is the arc do. Just want to make it a little bit bigger. Oh my god. What a pain. I'm trying to make the arc do bigger. Ah, okay, we'll just do it this way. All right, so let's say our VFry is 135. And I just put it on Alt. It should have been on Alt. And our V climb is 150. So in the Q400, we don't have enough space on the speeds bugged on the HSI. So on the HSI, we just put VREF for our approach speed. VGO, in the event of a go around, is our initial climb. And then we have VFry in the standby of the transponder, which is 135, and then V climb on the other side, which is 150. So it's sort of just like a cheat that we do. All right, so that's that. The next thing we're going to do is set up our minimums for this approach. Let me just have a quick peek. The minimums for the RNAV Zulu runway 30 into Edmonton are 2580, so we'll set that on the MDA. The altitudes up here, like above sea level, are so freaking high. I'm originally from Vancouver, so Vancouver's like 11 feet above sea level. Flying out in Calgary and Alberta, it's like thousands of feet above sea level. It's crazy. Okay, so 2580 set. All right, so at this point we would brief the approach, but we're not going to bother with that. So we're pretty much ready. So what I'm going to do now is I'm actually going to cheat a little bit, and I'm going to speed up the simulator here. So we'll just go speed it up times 8. So then that way we don't have to sit here too long. Yeah, this is sort of my first go at the sim, sort of getting into it. I'm so used to flying the airplane that I have the sim and I never use it, because on days off, the last thing you want to do is go home and pretend to fly the airplane that you were just at work for 3 or 4 days or whatever, right? So, but now that work has slowed down due to the world crisis, I thought I'd mess around with the sim and include you guys in it. So our top of descent here is coming up to 3 minutes, 2 minutes. So we are just going to wait for 1 minute here, and then I'll turn off the speed up on the sim. All right, there's 1 minute. So I'll just slow it down here. So we'll just close this. So what I'm going to do is arm the VPath. So we hit VNav, and it's not doing it. Oh, we need to set a lower altitude. So they're like, hey, descend to 8,000 feet when ready. So we would set 8,000 feet. 8,000 alt cell, and then we would arm the VPath. So VNav is armed. And we're just waiting for the VNav to come alive. And with the VNav armed, you'll notice that as it comes down, it'll automatically capture it. And it'll stay on that glide path, which is approximately 1,500 feet, which will give you the crossing altitude at MACID of 7,500 or whatever it was at 1,500 feet per minute. So this is actually a pretty sweet system. And for this one here, I'm going to keep my speed down quite a bit just because I don't want to screw up. And if I screw up, I got to re-record this thing, and kind of want to go out tonight, not record this all over again. So the VNav should be coming alive here any second. Just be patient. All right, here we go. The VNav is coming alive. Sweet. And once it captures, the alt will go away and it'll say VNav path. Nice, awesome. So here we go. We're starting to descend. We're starting to build up speed. That's not good. So I'm going to power down here. I really don't want to build up speed. And I don't think the power settings are accurate to the actual airplane, so this might screw me up. We also notice that we have a message here. Super important to check your messages because you don't want them building up on you. So let's see what that is. Message above VNav altitude. I don't know what that means. Oh, I see. All right, that's fine. And usually when we hit message, it goes away. Great. Okay, so once we hit MACID, it'll go SUVAT, and you see how a SUVAT is sort of duplicated? The system should be smart enough to just go right on to JEV1. And here we go. All right, so I'm just going to speed up the simulator again until 10,000 feet, at which point we'll do a few more checks. So we'll just go +8. And we're just going to bump up the power just a hair. I don't want to bleed too much speed. All right, so now I'm going to stop the sim speed up here, coming up to 10,000 feet. So 10,000 feet, what I would normally do is turn on the aux pumps. So turn on the aux pumps. Make sure that the altitude on the cabin is set. Make sure the GPWS is at flap 15, which is intended for landing. And I want to make sure the fasten seatbelt sign on is on, which is up here, which it is on. We left it on the whole flight. And then I would make a PA to the flight attendant saying, flight attendants, kind of like prepare for arrival, or please prepare the cabin for arrival, or something like that. All right, so now we're getting into the approach. I'm just going to zoom in here a little bit. So we'll go to 20 nautical mile arc. All right, sweet. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to speed it up again. And as we start to get close to the inbound course, I'll take it off. So we'll just speed it up. Whoa, way too fast. Oh, shit. So we're coming up to 8,000 feet, actually, and we have 8,000 feet alt cell. So it's going to level off at 8,000 feet. That's not good. So let's say we've been cleared the approach. So we will set airport elevation, which is 2,400. 2,400. So they would have cleared us for the approach or a lower altitude, but let's say just they cleared us for the approach. Also, another big thing in the Q400 is 8,000 feet. 8,000 feet is super stressful because at 8,000 feet, the barber pole or the Red Ant Army, or the Red Army, some people call it, it comes down to 245 knots. So usually at 9,000 feet, I start to slow down to 235 or less to give myself a 10 knot buffer. The last thing I want to do is overspeed the airplane. All right, so we're coming up to Savat, and then Jevon and into the runway. Great. I'm going to power down a little bit more because we're starting to build speed. There's no use going fast at this point. And we'll just speed up a little bit on the simulator. Actually, I don't want to speed up too much. It's starting to build speed on me. Ugh. So you notice how it built up speed, so I just want VS to stop it from overspeeding. VS is a great way to save your ass, because the last thing you want to do is overspeed the airplane.
Caution, terrain. Caution, terrain.
I don't know why it's giving me a caution terrain. All right, we'll rearm the V path. There we go. Okay, we're in business. So looks like we are intercepting the inbound course, so that's good. Just gonna add a little bit of power now because I don't want the speed to bleed too far down. And I'm just gonna go to 10-mile range. I'm gonna add a little bit more power because it's already at 180 knots. 180 knots it's a little bit slow for this far out, but like I said, we are configuring it a little bit earlier. Now we're turning into our final approach course. VNav path is armed, field elevation is set, LNav is good, inbound course is set. So we'll go high pumps on, and we'll go first notch of flaps, flaps 5, which is here. And we'll go gear down. This power setting is totally unrealistic. 25% at this speed. This is a really high power setting right now. Makes no sense, but whatever. All right, now what we're gonna do is put down more flaps. Our speed is building a little bit, so I'll just bring it down a hair. Gotta watch it though. We'll go flaps 10, flaps 15. And we'll go condition levers max. Whoops, flaps 15. My bad. Okay, so high pumps are on. Bleeds are min and on. Gear down 3 green, flaps 15 are good. And we're just going to turn off alt cell by holding alt cell, and that'll disengage alt cell, so we're good to land. So we're getting close to landing. I'm going to go back to this view here and just land, and hopefully it's an okay landing. A few key things of the landing, or sorry, I should say runway insight landing. So that's something you would say before the FAF, so we don't have to do the minimum calls, and we've crossed the FAF already, but whatever. So a few things about this airplane is you don't want to go beyond sort of 6 degrees nose up, because you have the risk of striking the tail. So it's really important that you land 5 degrees or less, and you don't want to round out too high or flare too high, because you could balloon the airplane, which gives you a whole other bucket problem. So typically you want to start to pitch up at 30 feet. So the radar altitude will give you like calls like 100, 50, 40, 30. At 30 feet, you want to bring the nose up a little bit and don't really bring the power back too much. And then once you've touched down, you can bring the power back. So we're at 700 feet AGL. This is our radar altitude right here. So I'm going to leave the autopilot on as long as possible. So typically you don't want to have the autopilot on lower than 200 feet AGL. So maybe at 300 feet AGL, I'll disengage the autopilot and land. 500. And I'm planning on just stopping on the runway, nothing fancy. Speed's good, and if the speed builds up a little bit, no big deal. All right, there's 300 feet. Autopilot disengaged. Starting to get a little bit high, a little bit left, a little bit left.
100.
Kind of losing the center line a little bit there.
50, 40, 30.
There's 30, round out.
10.
Bring the power back. And hit the brakes. A little bit off center line, or really off center line. But we'll just correct. And I didn't use any reverse, so there's no need to take the reverse off. Usually we want to take the reverse off at 16 knots. Just gonna set the parking brake, and whenever you set the parking brake, you got a caution warning. All right, so parking brake set. So that's the end of that. I just wanted to do a quick flight from Calgary to Edmonton. No checklists, no approach briefings, just getting into the Q400 sim. And I'm gonna do a few more of these in different conditions, like different weather conditions. Oh, this was winter conditions, actually, just looking outside. I meant to do summer conditions. Oh well, it was supposed to be summer. I messed up the weather settings. But the more of these that I do, the more realism I'll bring in. So pushing back from the gate, poor weather conditions, engine failures, stuff like that. So I'm planning to do an entire series on the Dash 8 Q400. And hopefully you find this entertaining. If you liked the video, please give the video a like. Consider subscribing to the channel. Otherwise, thank you for watching, and I hope you have a wonderful day. See you later.